Waging war on welfare fraud and abuse. Lawmakers in Kansas approving a bill that limits what folks can buy with taxpayer cash. Tattoos, massages, cruises, you name it, basically all non-food items are off limits. It also keeps ATM cash withdrawals at $25 a day. That's it. Chuck Rocha does not like what this means for the poor. But Hadley Heath and Sherry Jacobus say it's to get out of the poorhouse. Chuck, I've got to go to you first, because I know what you're going to say. So I'm going to go right at you with a personal question. You're a taxpayer, right?
Absolutely.
Are you happy to see your taxpayer money go on tattoos or cruises or gambling through welfare? Are you happy with that? I'm restricting it to that area. You happy with that?
I wouldn't be happy with my taxpayer going to tattoos. My mother was 15 when I was on food stamps. I'm now the president and CEO of my own company in Washington, D.C. This is what this program is for. We shouldn't be kicking poor people when they're down. We should be helping lift them up so they can have the opportunity to do what I have done.
Okay, Hadley Heath Manning, is it kicking poor people down when they're down if we stop them spending taxpayer welfare money on cruises and gambling?
No, I think these efforts to restrict and restrain the welfare state are beneficial not only to taxpayers whose dollars lawmakers are trying to protect, but ultimately for the truly destitute people who are involved in the welfare system. We want to help people move, if they're able-bodied, into employment, because we know the best welfare program is a job. So providing people with greater opportunities through jobs training programs, lawmakers in Kansas already deserve a huge pat on the back for the efforts and the strides that they've already made in those efforts. All
right, Sherry, do you think it could be described as, shall we say, mean-spirited to restrict what welfare recipients can use their cash for?
No, it's not. In fact, it's responsible. You can't just give something to somebody, a part of the vulnerable population, and then walk away. I think we have a responsibility to help them use this money for those necessities in life that it's meant to, especially if there are children involved. Look, we're a generous nation. We are spending more than $900 billion a year on welfare, both state and federal. We want it to work. We want people like Chuck. Chuck's mother obviously did a wonderful job raising him. So it shows that it does work, but we have to be responsible. And I think that we have to be faithful to the taxpayers as well. That's very important. We found that in the mid-90s with welfare reform. Bill Clinton, I was working on one of the committees that was one of the authorizing committees. Bill Clinton fought us tooth and nail on welfare reform, but it was so popular, after 2 vetoes, he had to sign it, and then he took credit for it, and we let him. So, you know, it's important to be responsible.
Chuck, there is also a limitation of $25 per day that can be taken in cash out of an ATM. Do you have a problem with that limit?
So if you're paying your rent and it's $200 a month, you got to go to the bank 8 times to get $25. That means the bank that's making money off of your welfare money. I have a problem with that, mainly because this state is already in a $200 million deficit because we've zeroed out all corporate interest and corporate taxes. So you're giving more welfare to the banks who don't need it.
Okay. Anybody want to comment on that one, Hadley?
Well, I think it's important to differentiate between welfare payments and between letting taxpayers keep more of their own resources, keep more of their own dollars. The assumption that everything automatically belongs to the state is a bad assumption and a bad premise to start with. But we have to go back again to the efforts that lawmakers have made in Kansas. I think focusing welfare on the truly destitute, making sure that they're only using welfare for necessity items, the best way to do that is, again, to move as many able-bodied people out of the program. That's a better approach than these conditions on what people can buy or cannot buy with their welfare dollars. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if we restrict the number of people involved in these programs, we will have only people buying necessities.
Well, you know what? In terms of the limited amount that you can pull out, it can be a little bit of a pain in the neck. I mean, there's probably a way to work around that in terms of fees. But in real life, working taxpayers in this country somehow budget themselves, and so to make sure they don't spend $300 or $400 on a weekend, they may make sure that on Friday they only take $150 out of the bank. So it's something that kind of everybody does when they're budgeting. It's not such a draconian idea.
Chuck, one last one for you. Do you think this could become a trend nationwide if it happens in Kansas?
We've seen welfare drop in Kansas. You've seen more than 10,000 people fall off of the rolls. The welfare system and social programs are supposed to lift people up, and we have to find responsible ways. I'm not going to argue and say that I need to go get a tattoo and use my welfare dollars, but it's hard to be poor.
Chuck, Hadley, Sherry, thank you one and all for coming by. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget, you can catch me, if you're desperate, on Varney & Company. That will be weekdays starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The name of the show is Varney & Company.